Hello and welcome back to Life.EV, your weekly deep dive into values and entrepreneurship. I'm Ajit Panicker, leading Nova and Pure Blue, and I'll guide you through the intertwined paths of business growth and personal value creation. As usual, every Saturday at 11 a.m. for transformative talks on balancing success and values in our lives. So join Life.EV for insights on living and leading with a purpose. And as usual, I have Vivek Asrani with me. Hi Vivek, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks, Ajit. How are you?
Absolutely good. To our viewers, Vivek Asrani is the driving force behind Kamo Fastener Company, a trailblazing company in the industrial fastener sector. What sets Vivek apart is his deep engagement with the exploration of values. For close to 4 years, he has dedicatedly penned his reflections on this topic every week. These insightful thoughts are accessible on his website, vivekasrani.com. Additionally, Vivek has authored the book One Day at a Time Reflections from Times of Silence, which further delves into his journey and insights. You can get hold of this book on Amazon. It offers readers a chance to engage with this profound understanding of values and their role in both personal and professional realms. So join us as we delve into this rich discussion with Vivek on Life.EV. So today is the last Saturday of a financial year, and we thought, what better day than to talk about balance sheets? So Vivek, let's talk about life's balance sheet. Let's hear it from you, man.
So it's quite simple. We always look at a balance sheet with two aspects, right? Assets and liabilities, and that's very true for our own lives as well. We have things that are assets in our lives, and then there is a set of liabilities. So I think it'll serve us well to take a step back to really understand what are our true assets and what are our true liabilities. So, beyond just the obvious assets of family, friends, health, money, which are the obvious assets, we need to also start recognizing, Ajit, some of the assets that we live with, but we probably haven't either recognized it or haven't started using those assets correctly and entirely. So, for example, opportunities that come our way or just being placed in a particular situation or context in itself is an asset. Being in India at a time like this today when the economy is really growing in itself is an asset. uh, Having certain networks and contacts beyond just the very close set of friends that we have could be a huge asset. The fact that we have the opportunity today to get onto the internet and learn things beyond our known knowledge again is an asset. Now sometimes we haven't really thought about all these as assets that we can mine and really exploit in a bigger and a better way. So that's one part of our reflection that helps. And on the other side is what are the liabilities we have. Now here we typically look at the liabilities as what do I owe someone, what are some of the monies or money related issues that I need to deal with, which are my liabilities. So that's just one part of it. But the other part of it is some of the relationships could be a liability in our life, which means they kind of hold us back and we're finding it very difficult to let go. Second is anything that stops the free flow of our energy is a liability in our life, and that is something which is internal and we need to learn how to recognize it and deal with it. Because if we continue living with that liability on our balance sheet, it is going to eat away into the asset base that we have. Because the higher the liability, the higher the asset we need to kind of balance it out. So we may have huge assets but we have huge liabilities and the net effect is zero. So that's the second thing, things that we stop the flow of energy for us. And the third thing, Ajit, is that relationships and any emotional baggage that we continue carrying is a liability. And sometimes the mind just gets used to it, enjoys it. We go into that mode of self pity. Why me? Why did this happen to me? Now, these are all liabilities which we have to recognize. So, this is really, one side of the whole, what I would call the life balance sheet. But there is another aspect to this, that just as there are people who are assets and liabilities in our life, we too sit in somebody else's balance sheet. And this is an important reflection for us to really sit back, look at all the close relationships we have in our personal and professional life, and ask ourselves the question that, am I an asset in this person's balance sheet, or am I probably a bit of a liability to this person? First, we have to be honest with ourselves. Second, if we find that we are a liability in somebody's balance sheet, it is our duty to move ourselves to the asset side. And that is where we need to be honest and take that effort to shift. So, life's balance sheet, Ajit, is not just about reflecting on my life's balance sheet, but also me in the balance sheet of people who are close to me.
That's an amazing, yeah. But tell me something, yeah. From a professional side, from a business perspective, at the end of the year, you look at a balance sheet and you say that, how did my year go? And then you
Yeah.
know whether it's success, it's been a bad year, it's been not a good year. You take time to reflect on it. How do you measure the success on a personal life balance sheet? How do you see that?
We've spoken a little bit about this in the past as well, and this is a topic that, and a conversation that comes up, I think, very often for all of us, that how do we measure success? Of course, success partly is measured in the outcomes that we have set out to achieve the goals, and when we achieve the goals, we say that we've been successful. But reality is that we don't always achieve the goals. Sometimes we exceed the goal, and sometimes we don't achieve them. When we exceed the goals, we're very happy. But when we don't achieve them, we often fall into the trap of making life binary and saying, "Oh, I wasn't successful." Because if I'm not successful, then I failed in that. Yes, we didn't achieve the goal, but the fact is that the result is a combination of effort and circumstances. And circumstances not being in our control, obviously, the result is not entirely in our control. So, how do I measure success? A, did I give my best? B, was I happy through the whole experience? And even if it was a very difficult experience, was I at least equanimous, if not happy? Sometimes you can't be happy going through a tough situation. But did I keep my equanimity and balance? Third, was I able to effectively carry people with me, or did I cause a lot of heartburn and stress in relationships through the journey? Fourth, did we achieve the goal that we set out to? If not, were we quick enough and honest enough to admit and recognize why we're not achieving it, and did we bring about improvements along the way? And were we flexible enough to course correct and not stubborn to say, look, I've decided this, I've said this, and we have to do it just like this, and we're not going to change. And at the end of it, when I take a step back and I look at all of this, I put it together, and that's when, for my own sake, I come up with my answer to say, was I successful in this endeavor or not? Which may be a little different than if I were to only look at it unidimensionally to say, did I achieve the goal or not? So I think there is a difference between, was my goal achieved, and was I successful through this endeavor?
That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And it's something that I really wanted to share when I really look back on my personal balance sheet. One
Hmm.
of the things is, when you do a professional balance sheet and you look at it, there are certain key values that you want to keep to yourself. You want to audit whether those values are still there or not.
Hmm.
And in my personal balance sheet, I always look at two, three attributes which are very simple. Uh, is my feet on the ground? Do I, is this, am I still simplistic enough? Am I still minimalistic about certain things? These are certain values that probably you've grown up with it, so it is deeply embedded in you.
Yeah.
It's very easy to say about these things, right?
Yeah.
But when you want to live through it all over again, that's when you realize whether how close you are to reality. So
But
I've been doing these Himalayan trips.
sorry, I mean, talking about close to reality. I mean, you take these solo trips. I know you recently went, to the Himalayas on a trek. Uh, how does that fit into your whole life balance sheet evaluation? First of all, why
Yeah.
do you
So
do it? Okay, what's the fun in doing it, and how does it fit in here?
so one of the things is, when you evolve as a person, and especially when you're so focused on business, and sometimes this success is what is is something that's measurable, right?
Yeah,
And then over a period of time, that's what gets into you, who you are. And then you ask the question whether those basic core values that you first believed in, do they still exist, or is
yeah,
just a matter of belief and everything. I do this Himalayan trek solo,
okay,
and I've been doing this now for the past 10 years. And about a month ago, I had the opportunity to take a trek on the Chadar. Chadar is where the frozen river is there. The Zanskar River is frozen, and you walk for 5 days in minus 18 degrees and minus 21 degrees. So just to give you a feel of this is something how it looks like. See, you
wow,
have a frozen river and it just keeps going down, and you meet about four or five strangers, and it's a valley, it just keeps going down. That river flowing is frozen, and in some portions it is completely frozen. Now for 5 days you do this, and you cross about close to 100 kilometers. Um, and I must tell you something. When I finished these 5 days, of course, it's not easy, but it's beautiful. You're with nature. You are in the moment because the ice is there. You have to make sure you don't put your foot on the ice because there is a frozen river flowing below it. So you learn to be in that moment. You're teaching yourself. And you also realize that what you think are you're okay and simplistic and minimalistic it's different when you actually live it all over again. And this was an experience. What happened was, after I finished this whole trek, one of my biggest happy moments
hmm.
was a hot shower bath to brush my teeth. I do this every day in my life, and you just taken it for granted.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you just realize that something so simple as that can be a joyful activity. So,
yeah.
so in a way, for me, in my personal life balance sheet, it's always been keeping an audit and check on certain key values that you believe, that that's what your faith is. That's what you believe. That's how you perform good. That's what who you are as an individual, and that's the core of your belief and strength. So for me, these trips are all a check on my personal belief system, on my personal balance sheet, as to whether those core values, those core assets, are still in place. Is it because that's the only way to check it, right? In a professional thing, the numbers come in. So sometimes you have to put yourself to that test to see that core values exist or no.
No,
And
and
that's
what you said is very true, Ajit. That you have to keep auditing your own balance sheet because there's one dimension of the life balance sheet that we have to be aware of. Just because something is on the asset side doesn't mean it is always going to remain on the asset side. If we don't check it often enough and don't pay attention to it, it can soon become a liability. And just because something currently is on the liability side doesn't mean that we're doomed forever. If handled correctly and responded with the right attitude, we can turn that to our advantage and convert it into an asset. So this constant shift, and which is why very often people complain about life was good and suddenly it's in a bit of a tizzy and it's in a bit of a mess and things aren't going well. So actually what's happening is that the assets and liabilities on the life balance sheet are moving at a pace at which we haven't been quick enough to arrest the fall if it is asset moving to liability, and we haven't been calm enough to convert the liabilities into assets. So I think we need to be aware of this. What you said is so true.
so. This also brings me to another question. When you look at your personal balance sheet, towards the end, you'll also feel there have been a setbacks or losses in
Yeah.
one area of your life. What are your thoughts on how do you rebalance your life sheet once you've discovered that your losses have been on the higher side, but on a personal balance sheet, how do you actually rebalance that?
So I think it comes in two ways. If you're really grounded, smart, uh, aware, then you see it coming and you take corrective action. And I was none of the above. So at the age of 27, just out of college for a few years, and did exceedingly well for myself in school and college. Uh, Played for school, played sport for college, but I started neglecting my health. And within 5 years, I came back from a run one day and I was coughing blood, and the whole basin was red. Advanced stages of tuberculosis. So an asset, my health, which actually allowed me to do so many things while I was in school and college and be so active, suddenly shifted very sharply from being a huge asset to a huge kind of a crisis situation in my life. So it moved to the liability side. Long story short, I stayed in Panchgani for 4 months to recuperate, thanks to my Parsi naturopath neighbor, doctor. 9 months of medication. When I was allowed to run, Ajit, I couldn't run more than 500 meters. And I still remember talking to myself that I'm 27, I can't run 500 meters, one round of CCI, and I was completely out of breath. Again, long story short, in a few years, I recovered my stamina, went on to run the marathon. I mean, I've run 15 half marathons. So again, I shifted that liability to the asset side again. So for me, that has been one experience of life which taught me that look, don't take things for granted when things are going well. And when things are not going well, don't get disheartened because we have the ability to overcome any crisis, problem, or situation. Right. So that was on the personal front. On the business front, a factory which dad had set up, ran successfully for 40 years, took care of the family and everything. Huge, huge asset. Now, I don't know whether we didn't invest enough in the technology, whether the dynamics around us were changing very fast, but suddenly, I saw that the business is going to shut down. So it became a huge kind of a situation for us. And I looked at that and I said, okay, what's the hidden opportunity in this? What is my next step? To be honest, I wasn't philosophical about it. I was more practical than what do I do now? But what came out was a direction of our industry, which I may not have actually looked into were things going really well. So picked up that liability issue, applied myself along with a great team, and today we've been able to move it back to the asset side and doing well for ourselves. So this is one thing I've learned. Don't take things for granted when they're going well. Give gratitude and pay attention. And when things are down, don't get disheartened. Bounce back like a rubber ball.
Awesome. Well, all of you are going to look at your business balance sheets. Take a moment out and check out your personal balance sheets and see what do you think about it. That's the thought provoking discussion with some deep insights that we've had today. And it certainly gives us plenty to ponder about balancing between exploring values and business growth. Now, I'm going to request all of you guys again not to keep these ideas to yourself. Share it with a friend. Share this episode with a friend, colleague, and family and ask them what do you think. Spark a conversation and see where it leads to. Next week on Saturday at 11 a.m., we're going to talk about overcoming fear. So do join us. And we'd love to hear from you on this. Join the dialogue on our social media platforms. Share your questions, your learnings, and the insights you have gained from this episode. It's through these shared experiences and perspectives that we all grow together and learn together. So don't hesitate to reach out and contribute this ongoing conversation. Your voice matters. That's all for today. Join us again next week for another enriching episode of Life.EV. Thank you for listening. And remember to reach out to your friends and get a conversation going on life exploring values. And Vivek, thank you very much. It's always fun and it is always great to hear your insights and your reflections.
My pleasure, Jitan. I always enjoy being on your show.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.